were monitoring and saying, Your Excellency, you said this last year and you have repeated it again. And if you look at a file we gave to you or through your CS or whoever, maybe it is economic advisors, we are seeing the number growing every day. Those advisors must really, again, deal with the value for money thing. So you are being paid to do what? What is it that you are helping Kenyans to respond to? Whereas the questions that we are asking, where we think that your good brains and your presence, capacity and technical expertise can actually help us in generating innovative solutions to those problems.
All right, Ken, last year's theme for Labor Day was labor export, because like I said earlier, the Kenya Kwanza government is keen on trying to create jobs abroad, right? The remittances that we get from diaspora, does the country capitalize on them? Because there's increased labor export, meaning that there's flow of money that comes in. So does the country capitalize on such funds to help Kenyans, or to help the country locally from those remittances?
Well, diaspora remittances have been a significant revenue flow for the country. It's about $5 billion as we speak, and half of it is coming from the United States. So these are Kenyan men and women working in hospitals, working as engineers. These tend to be high-quality jobs. But if you really look at the Kenya labor export strategy, it's really not speaking to those economies. It's speaking to your, as Jeff had said, your Saudi Arabia. It's speaking to Myanmar. And the Standard did an excellent coverage of Kenyans in Myanmar and the insane jobs they're having to do. So there's a disconnect. And I think most fundamentally, the world is going through an anti-globalization phase. So most countries are nationalizing. Most countries are inwardly looking. Even if you look at Germany, and I like they mentioned about Germany, the Germany under Angela Merkel is very different from the Germany of today. The Germany that was very open to migrants now is not so much. If you look at the US under Trump's policies, yesterday they showed that the lowest number of immigrants came in from Mexico in America's history. So countries are moving towards inward looking. Countries are asking, why are immigrants coming and we have unemployed people? So if there was ever a worst time to export labor to Europe, to UAE, to US, is now. Because most countries actually focusing, taking the America First policy in their own respective jurisdiction. So first of all, the timing is terrible. And number two, the jobs that are being created is not those high quality jobs in the US. It's not your software developer at Microsoft who's earning $100,000. The jobs we are seeing in the news are house helps in Saudi Arabia who are being tortured, is scammers in Myanmar who are being electrocuted to scam people. So these are jobs that do not provide dignity, do not provide skills transfer, do not provide a lot of things. So we do not need to export labor. We can produce enough in our country. If you look at the items we export to the US, now that somebody talk about the tariffs, one of our biggest exports is apparel. So somebody's working in Athi River, in an EPZ, and they're exporting apparel, jeans, to top brands in the US. You know, these are the Levi's, the Wranglers. And Kenyans are asking, if we can provide such high quality textiles to the American market, why is it that Kenya is the #1 mitumba economy? Actually, it's the #1 mitumba economy in Africa. It has even exceeded Nigeria, which has a population of 4.5 times
its size. Ken, we tried banning that, and Kenyans were not for it. Yes.
Who was not for it?
Kenyans were like, they tried banning the importation of mitumba, but now the people that import those clothes to sell for Kenyans have a problem with it. Well, so the problem, I think, is within ourselves.
It's not within ourselves, because the issue is the cost of local production is very expensive. So if somebody wants a nice outfit, they are unlikely to go to a mall, because maybe that outfit may be 3,000 shillings, when they can go and get a mitumba for 600, 700 shillings. So it's a question of the purchasing power of Kenyans. Most Kenyans actually will tell you they want to support Kenyan designers. They want to support Kenyan fashionistas. But the cost of their products is much, much higher. So we need to ask ourselves, why is our cost of production high? Is it the electricity costs that are high, we need to reduce it. Is it the labor cost? It's not labor cost, because Kenyans are saying they're not getting that money. So we just need to make our manufacturing system have less taxes, less cost of energy. So if you're a fashion designer and you can create a nice outfit, Kenyans can afford it. Because Kenyans say that I love that outfit, but it's way beyond what I can afford. So it's more of a macro situation. So if we can create jobs, so the people working in those textile industries are earning high quality jobs, have good income, even they can support other local producers. So it's not that Kenyans don't want local produce, it's just the price differential sometimes is very, very high.
And probably, Grace, in addition to that is that is really what is available. So you have people who went with Today's University many years ago in the mitumba industry, and they wake up from their homes to go and sell mitumba. And so you get there and they're like, bado tunangojea bail inakuja, you know. Yet we're talking about governments, the one national and the 47s, who have also very extensively talked about the county aggregation industrial parks. What is the essence of putting up parks that are not responsive to the needs of the people? So that we look at the counties, for example, and we say, national government, in your different departments and ministries, departments and agencies, where are these macro produce from every counties, whether they are tea growers, coffee growers, etc. Then we link them to the aggregation parks, and then ultimately we talk about the value chain. Can we be able to get markets? So that it is the responsibility of national government to look for markets abroad, other than now allowing for these mitumbas to get into the country. And across the board now, I think in the former regions, we have almost an area, we have the export processing, the EPZs. What is really the essence of those particular, very high level productivity value chain measures if we cannot be able to utilize them? So again, going back to the conversations, we must be able to invest in proper research on what we have. I'm sure that research is available. The opportunities that we have in the country, I am sure that research or the data about that is also available. But then the political goodwill to do what is in the letter and its spirit. And ultimately, Kenyans will not be struggling. Sometimes you go to some of these embassies and high commissions and look at the heavy lanes of people waiting for passports, waiting for visas, waiting for, against the cost of getting these visas, which sometimes 8 years, you keep applying and you're doing your mitumba work or you're doing your boda to raise money to go and pay to an embassy to get visas. So the government, especially in the spirit of Labor Day, has to be very, very conscious around the environment, and particularly relating this to other sectors like the education. So what are we training in our schools and what is available in our environments? You go to Kisii, for example, and the heavy market of soapstone along the road from Kisii town all the way to Migori. You will find people in small networks selling soapstones, very nicely done, dishes, cups, and even spoons, And then you're like, kwa nini hii hamwezi jitengeneza kwa, a group and then you export it? And you're like, the cost of doing business, registering that network is very expensive, and peer training. They don't have capacity training and technical support, which in my view, all these institutions, and as Ken talks about the National Employment Authority, this is an agency of government that I'm sure has capacity to tell us which kind of expertise do we have locally, and where is it in the global market, the global sphere, and what value can Kenya get? So that if it is about getting expatriates to come and train our local men and women here, let's do it. So 1 week you are in a training, this person goes back home, and then we monitor the skills transfer. But again, part of this, as I finish, is the politicization of the labor market. To a level where mwanasiasa anasimama anasema, we will not ensure that teachers are promoted unless they pass through us. Who told you that? Must it be politicized? Allow people who are qualified to do the work which they have been trained to do, and through that I'm sure that the country's economic growth will spur, and as it spurs, the self-reliance that we are talking about today in today's Labor Day will actually be felt by that common work.
All right, so you're trying to say that we have a lot with us.
Of course, the potential is immense.
All right, so when we keep on talking about labor export, like I said, it's one of the programs by the Kenya Kwanza government. One of the local dailies highlighted the Qatar police jobs fiasco. And of course, it's in the infiltration of rogue recruitment agencies into a government's program. And maybe even can just read, says Kenyans desperate for jobs abroad are losing their cash to rogue recruitment agencies. These untouchable architects of the con games continue to rip off victims lured by false promises of a breakthrough in life. Right? These untouchable architects that are penetrating through a government's program. And this is not the first time that when we are having such fiascos, such people that are being, highlighted as rogue agencies. Do you think we'll ever get to a point where these untouchable people that have no names and heads are going to ever be caught, so that all this mess comes to an end?
I think it has been said that some of these cartels are connected to the Ministry of Labor. It comes up very, very many times that these are senior officials who have side businesses that connect people to these jobs. It's one thing to connect people to jobs, and indeed when you fly to a city like Doha, right from the airport, the person at the airport most likely will be a Kenyan. If you go to Dubai, the person at your hotel, the person at the reception, the person cleaning the swimming pool will be a Kenyan. And so Kenya, first of all, we have to take pride that Kenya has had a very good human capital. The best thing Kenya has is our human capital. We may not have gold or oil, but we do have a very good human capital that is highly respected across the world. The fact that we cannot professionalize these, even if you say you're going to export labor, we cannot professionalize that sector and say, first of all, they need to show you the job descriptions. Number two, there needs to be a process. The fact that there's no regulation, I think for me, shows that there's a big demand for cash by cartels that want to do it, and they don't have accountability. Once you're in those cities, your employer can easily take your ID, can take your passport, and you're really left to your own devices. So the fact that we can, it shows that there's a huge profit motive within the cartels that want to keep it as it is. I think it's a major source of revenue income. And again, it goes back to the bigger question, which even Kevin talked about, is what is the quality of jobs in our public sector? Because public sector people can only engage in corruption if they're not getting proper salaries. So if I'm an official at the Ministry of Labor, the only reason I will engage in such activities is maybe what I'm earning in my 9 to 5 is not meeting my requirements. So I'm told, oh, actually, there's like a plan that you can do so. Go to the Kenya police. And that's the reason you go to the US, to the UK, it's very difficult to bribe a policeman. Because if you look at the package a policeman in Denmark has, I mean, they would not even want to touch a bribe with a 50-foot pole, because it comes with benefits, it comes with education for your children, it comes, whether it's the military, there's so much prestige. So I think for me, if we want to cure issue of corruption and things such as what we are seeing right now, we need to make sure that we are providing quality environment to the public sector, the policeman, the city council worker. It's only when they have a proper lifestyle that they'll take their job seriously and they'll say no to these other money-making initiatives, which at the end of the day is for their benefit. So I think that's a fundamental question. What is the nature of our public sector? And lastly, Grace, I'll remind you of a big, there's a big commission of inquiry that I think it was in the 80s that allowed public servants to participate in business. I think we really need to review that clause, that commission, because now, at that time, it was meant maybe because public service employees were low, their salaries were low, so it allowed you an opportunity to engage in business. But what it has become now, it has become an avenue for corruption. So I think we need to make sure, like in countries like China, you're either in the public sector or in the private sector. You cannot be both. You have to choose, and we need to make sure we provide our public servants with the best possible packages and tell them now we can no longer tolerate people trying to come up with money-making schemes, because there's no excuse. We are given a very good package all the way till retirement. I think once we do that, we'll see the corruption and all these money-making schemes are disappearing.
All right, Kevin, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, precisely. And again, it goes back to our architecture as a people, that you don't have to have your own in government for your people to be employed, and especially in the public sector. So if we can be able to do a few things, which I'm sure as part of the CS speech, because this is part of what was captured in the communique that we submitted to the CS Mutua when he attended the meeting that we organized with the trade unions. Recognition, promotions, there has to be a mechanism through which all this is being done. So that even as somebody is busy, as a worker is busy doing his or her responsibilities and those duties, at least there is a scale and a timeline at which you know that when I work here for say 6 to 8 years, I am going to be promoted. As it is right now, these spaces they look like a preserve to the politicians, and especially our legislators, and of course even those who are in the executive, who are the implementers. So if we can be able to also think through how we motivate, how we promote, and also how we recognize workers who are delivering up to the optimal level, I believe that will be critical. Number two is government engagement with workers and also employers. And one of those issues that was raised during our meeting was the Salaries and Remuneration Commission and the levels of concerns or interference, especially when it comes to the collective bargaining agreements, that workers or trade unions will bargain and negotiate with the employers, but when it comes to ultimate payroll conversations, the employer would rather use the SRC rates and the levels. So you ask yourself, what is the spirit of the CBA? Is it not supposed to be a tool of conversations and negotiations between the worker and also the employer, so that within this space of engagement, you're able to underscore levels of productivity that will also be pleasing to the employer? But that is not the kind of conversation that we are having today, which therefore begs the question around the space of intergovernmental relationships, and even as Ken talks about NEA, so the role of Foreign Affairs Ministry as we do this labor export thing through the Kazi Maju Kenya Kwanza program. Where is the space of Ministry of Foreign Affairs and then now Diaspora Affairs, because diaspora remittances as well, where, for instance, now the safety of Kenyans who have been exported or taken to these other countries are at risk. And you see every day how families grapple grapple with the pain of bringing back dead bodies of their relatives. They can't even pay, air ticket is this and all that. And in some instances, the government is almost unable to respond. So a lot of things that, in my view, opportunities like Labor Day really give us a chance to be able to present these concerns and therefore address them, so that both workers, the government, and also employers feel like all our sides and all our concerns are actually being met.
But Kevin, as I said earlier, some of these concerns that we as workers are supposed to submit on Labor Day,
yes,
they have been submitting throughout, even
yes,
maybe throughout that year. Perhaps just yesterday, clinical officers on strike,
yes,
teachers go on strike, and whatever they're calling for, must we wait until we have an event like this for those things, for their pleas to actually be actualized?
And Grace, that is purely where the issue is, the lack of this engagement platform, which is why I liked the political question.
But we see them in boardrooms. They have agreed.
Which is why I liked the political question that Noah asked Jeff about the leadership of KOTU. Because that leadership, based on the numbers, based on the capacity that the trade unions, particularly KOTU, have on the strength of the other trade unions, they must see value for the leadership. But if it is a leadership that is going to be dancing, like now we see the dancing is going on, that's an opportunity for